Hi there and welcome back to Hungary. I'm going to be doing a little bit of planting. It's the end of January and we've got plenty of time, and I want to get on planting a lot of things now so I can have a jump start on the growing season. It's going to be a little bit easier because I do have this greenhouse, but also I'm going to be putting a lot of things inside to keep them warm during the winter season. Now we have shoshka, which is a leafy green, and I'm not a huge fan of it because it's kind of got a sour taste to it, but my wife loves it, so I'm going to be doing that. And I'm going to be planting something that's very popular here in Hungary, and that's the celery root. So it's not the same as this celery. It is, you harvest the bottom part, so it's basically just a root crop of the celery, and it's grown differently than the typical celery because this is focused on the green parts here, and this is focused on the root. Next we have the celery, which is the most delicious part. I love this with some peanut butter and some raisins. Growing up, we would call that ants on a log, and it was super cute and absolutely delicious. Next I'm going to be doing some kale, and this is something that I learned last year. It is not, it hates the sun and the warmth, so starting it now, I'm going to be able to get it kick-started and hopefully get some harvests done before the warmer weather comes in May, June. I'm also going to be doing some radishes. This is the black radish, so it's a fekete retek. It's absolutely delicious, very spicy. And then this just standard radish. It's nothing fancy, but it's got the classic radish taste. I'm also going to do some spinach. I did some spinach in the greenhouse already. I laid it out in one of my beds, but I'm going to be doing it more, and I'm going to be planting it in these pots so I can then prick them out and plant them where I need them to be. And I'll be doing also some broccoli, two kinds of broccoli. So this classic broccoli, and then also this spearheaded broccoli. I've not grown this before. I'm very excited to give this a shot. And then also we've got chard, which is related to beets, but it's more focused on the leaf part than it is on the root. And this is absolutely delicious, amazing in salads. And I've got also some saved seeds for some yellow onions that I did last year. And I already did a germination test with these, and it was about 50-50. So I'm going to continue on my way with these. And lastly, but not least, some icicle radish. This is absolutely delicious. I've struggled with this in the past because it absolutely hates the warmth and the heat, and it just bolts really quickly. So getting it started now. This is best started in the ground, not in pots, because obviously we have a huge taproot, so we got to focus on that. And now before we get started actually planting these things, there's one step that we have to do that's so important, and that is drink some coffee, because it's early in the morning. I highly recommend drinking some warm coffee on a morning like this because it just makes your day better. Now I'm going to start off with the onions, so I'll clear all of this away. And I'm going to be planting it in these pots here, because when I plant them in here, I can plant them fairly thick and then just prick them out and move them to where I want them to be. So I'll start off by filling this guy up and then just taking a pinch, dribbling these over. And since the germination test was about 50-50, I'm going to be fairly heavy on planting these. Put a little bit of compost on top, tamp it down so that seeds get good contact with the soil, and then set it aside and make sure that I remember what I planted where. I will put some tags on this because that's something I always struggle with, is tagging things and making sure I remember what's what, especially with my brassicas. That's where it gets really difficult because they all look the same when they start growing. Now I'll do the same with the chard. And as beet seeds are multi-clustered seeds, chard is the same thing because they're very much related. So I'm just going to carefully put these around, kind of in a circle spiral, and then let them take root. A few years ago, this was excellent. Last year, it struggled. 2 years ago, I had a patch that it just wouldn't stop. So these are prolific growers when they have the right conditions. And I'll put these under a little bit more soil because they like to be a little bit buried. Whereas the onions need just a little bit of soil. And for the broccoli, I'm going to be reusing and recycling my yogurt containers. Greek yogurt is the best. Much better than any other yogurt that I've found. So I'm going to be putting these in. Broccoli seeds are incredibly tiny. So I'm going to sprinkle some of these here, and then we can prick these out later once they've gotten a little bit of a root ball on them. There's that. And I'm going to tamp these down so it has a little bit of contact with the soil. And this will be easy for me to remember that these are all broccoli because they're all in the same container. So these seeds I got a few years ago. They were certified in 2019, so that was 7 years ago. Whew, that was a long time ago. And because the expiry date on this is 2023, I'm going to be a little bit more generous with the seeds because I know that seeds go bad over time, but I don't think they go bad that quickly. So even if I get a 50% germination rate on this, it's still going to be pretty good. And I want to be fairly generous with that. And then we can prick that out later. And when you're doing this, always use sieved compost because then it won't interfere with the seeds germinating. Now we'll do some spinach. The expiration date on this one is 2025, so last year. So these are guaranteed to have a fairly good germination rate. And again, I will scatter these around and then we will prick them out later and pot them up into something larger and more individual. And now we let's do our shoshka. And these seeds are incredibly tiny. They kind of look like the wood fleas or the snow fleas that you see when you're walking through the forest. My wife and I were recently walking through the forest and it's still snowy, and we saw all of these snow fleas, which I didn't know was a thing, but apparently it's very common. And so these seeds look like the snow fleas. But luckily snow fleas are harmless to humans. There's something really special about planting in January. It's not something that you can usually do in a lot of different regions, but this year, because I have the greenhouse and because I'm being more intentional, this is going to be a lot easier to manage because I'll be able to really focus on how and when to get all of these things planted. And it's exciting because anytime you can start to grow something is a good day. Okay, now we're going to do our kale, which is absolutely delicious. I had some of this still growing in the garden now. It's very, very hardy, especially this kind. I don't remember what variety this is exactly because it's all in German. It's Halbauer Grüner Krauser. No idea what that means. And this is where we have to be very careful about branding and marking these things because all of the brassicas to me look exactly the same when they start. And so I got very confused. I couldn't tell what was broccoli, what was kale, and what was Brussels sprouts when I started them. So I just randomly put them and plotted them. And luckily it worked out, but it's a lot better if you just mark them. That's a lesson for me. Now we'll do the celery. So we're going to do the roots first and then move on to the stalks. Again, we will prick these out later into their own little pots. I'm really curious to see the difference in how the celery grows when it's planted for the root versus the stalk. Very interesting. Again, being very generous with the seeds because I would much rather have too many plants than not enough. And celery takes ages to grow, and so getting them started this early is very important. And with celery, you have to be very careful and very diligent because they take so much water to grow. So if you skimp on your watering, they probably will not last. And now we're doing the black radish, the fekete, and these were last year an excellent addition. They were nagyon csípős, which is very spicy, and I enjoyed them. We gave a few away. They were delicious, and they grew massive. So they were like this big. Although when they get that big, they are a little more woody than they are delicious. So I would say this year I'll be harvesting them a little bit sooner because I don't really like the woody, well, no one really likes the woody taste of radish. And I'm trying to be very intentional with actually saving a lot of the seeds on my own, because then it's more guaranteed if it works and it grows well, then I can guarantee that I'm going to get something good out of the next year, because then the variety that I have is going to be really well adapted to the area. And lastly, we're going to do our little red radishes. And I've never been a huge fan of radish in the past, but I know if you have these in the garden and you like them, then you can just pull them up, wipe them off, and eat them. It's important to have little snacks dotted about the garden so that in the summer when you're gardening, you're pulling your bindweed, pulling the weeds, you can just grab a tomato, you can grab a radish, and just crunch on it. It's absolutely delicious. And it's a good way to just remember that you have food in the garden. I think that's something that's very difficult for me, is remembering what we have and that it's ready to harvest. Now that we've got all of our seeds done, I'm going to give them a little mist so that they can get a little moisture and start the germination process. I will leave them outside here in the greenhouse. It's still cold outside, but the greenhouse is like 5 degrees. And so the warmer weather is coming. We're going to be hitting about 8 degrees with the highs next week. And so this will be 20-25 degrees inside, which is going to be excellent for germinating these. And so if I germinate them outside, I don't have to go through the whole process of hardening them off. And for me, it's really difficult to remember hardening off and bring them outside for an hour and then 2 hours. And it's too complicated. So doing it this way, yes, I'm lucky because I have the greenhouse to do this in. If you don't have a greenhouse to do this in, the hardening off period is frustrating and simple. It's simple, but it can be just hard to remember. But if you put them outside, you can leave them in used plastic bins or under a cover. If you have an extra window lying around, you can use that as a cold frame, and that will help to negate the whole hardening off period, because they will germinate when they need to germinate. And that's the easy way to do it. So thank you very much for subscribing and engaging in the comment section, because in the comment section down below, that's where we really get to do a lot of our learning, because the way we engage with each other is very important. And I've learned over the last few months a lot from the comments from my followers. So thank you very much for that. Let's have a discussion. I want to learn more from you. If you're a gardener in the region, please feel free to engage in the comments and give us some tips for planting and growing here in Hungary, because I want to learn from you, because that's the best way to learn, from experts and people who are also experimenting and just learning together. If you liked this, please go and watch this video, because it's going to be equally as engaging as this one. Until next time, viszontlátásra, and goodbye.